Let's talk a little bit about in the beginning how you got started. What were some of those early points of inspiration for you, Josh, when you were, a youth, sort of coming up the ranks where you were raised and where you grew up? Folks in the family or others that have an arts background, an entertainment background that inspired you, or were you sort of the breakout in the family?
Well, it there were some distant ancestors that I didn't know about at the time that I've learned about since, who were in the arts. A couple of vaudeville performers, one who specialized more in the opera sort of thing, but on the vaudeville circuit, and then another who sort of probably did novelty songs. We don't totally know because it's a little bit lost. But we have some of their material, which is sort of fun to kick around. But outside of that, my immediate family, no, there were no real artists per se. Although my father was very big in the church choir, the small town church choir. And to be clear, I grew up in a very rural part of Southwest Virginia,
Hmm.
just outside of Roanoke, if anybody knows that area.
Yeah.
And so it was a very specific sort of place. And
Hmm.
my father in the Southern Baptist Church, really loved singing, loved gospel music. And so that's, but when I say gospel music, I mean like the gospel that I saw at the time, which was the old sort of
Yeah.
4-part, almost like a version of barbershop quartet that
Right.
ventured into spirituality. That type of gospel, not like black gospel, although I fell in love with that years later, but couldn't sing it, unfortunately. Um, but that's that's the closest it was. My sister, I have two sisters, and the one directly above me, I'm the youngest of the three. The one directly above me was involved in like community theater and school theater. So I do remember watching her in a production, a high school production of Bye Bye Birdie.
Mm.
And that was the first time I was like, oh, I could stop trying to play sports, which I was doing very poorly, and maybe
Yeah.
I could do this. This looks like fun. They look like they're having a good time, and that was probably the earliest sort of hatching of an idea, light bulb going off, and that was probably, you know, 12 or 13, 14-ish, in that ballpark. I know my first musical was when I was 15 at the community theater,
What
where
was
I
the
had no.
musical?
Believe it or not, it was 1776,
Mm.
and I played at the community theater, and I played the courier, which now that I'm older, I realized how brilliant of a casting choice it was to put somebody, not somebody in his 20s, but somebody in his teens. How devastating that song becomes. He has this great song at the end of the first act called "Mama Looks Sharp," and all about what he sees on the battlefield and how all these soldiers who are basically kids are dying, and as they're dying, they're calling out for their mothers, because that's all that they, what else would they call out for? And it's devastating. But I didn't realize it at the time because I was just terrified of singing in public, right? But looking back, I'm like, oh, if I ever direct that role must be a teenager. it's
Mm,
so
right.
it's so much more heart-wrenching.
Perfectly
um
cast. Yeah.
yeah, but
So that was the very first, and then you sort of got your feet wet. And what happened from there? We were starting to get notices from people and saying, this kid's really good. I mean, what happened from there as far as opportunities and doors opening for you, Josh, along the way?
Well, I was very naive and accidentally humble, I guess, is the way. I had no idea. But,
Which
people
can have
basically,
its merits too. I mean, sometimes you go in and you're authentic and there's no expectation.
yeah, exactly. I mean, so I kind of stumbled into it, and they basically said, a lot of people, the director, the other people involved in the production were like, you can sing, like you should look at this. And I, of course, was like, you're kidding. Really? Me? I don't know. And so I naturally went with the first thing I thought, well, where do you go to learn how to sing? You go to the opera world. So I auditioned to be a part of this. It was a company called Opera Festival de Roma, and it was through the University of Virginia. But they took college students and a select, like a tiny handful of high school students that were basically interns to the program, apprentices, over to Rome in Italy to study and perform 2 operas. So I got into that program. It was a 6-week program, and I flew over to Italy, and I studied opera for 6 weeks and did 2 operas, one in German, one in Italian, and realized very quickly that the music I was listening to that I was getting excited about was musical theater. I was listening to musical theater cast albums. I wasn't listening to opera. So singing it, I was very like, oh, weird. This is not that fun. I don't really want to learn these languages. I don't know these languages. I'm just learning phonetic sounds. And, there wasn't time in 6 weeks to learn 2 languages. So I wasn't having a great time. But then also faculty members there working with me vocally said, you could force yourself to find a more operatic sound, but, naturally you have a very forward, bright musical theater voice. Why don't you consider doing that? And I said, oh, that's funny you say that. That's what I want to do. I just thought I had to come through the opera world to do that. And they were like, no, you don't have to do that at all. So that was the end of my opera career. And I came back. I knew I wanted to take theater a little more seriously. I was just kicking around, having fun at that point. But through that, you start taking it a little more seriously because everybody around you, certainly in the opera world, takes it very seriously. And I was like, oh, I like this. I like the dedication to this thing. So then I started looking at acting in the same way. So I auditioned for a residential high school program through the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. So that's how I ended up going there. So it was my senior year of high school that I spent in residency at the North Carolina campus in Winston-Salem. So you're working with the faculty of the college faculty, and they were phenomenal and really gave me a foundation in the acting world. And from there, I thought, when I was looking at colleges, I thought I needed to go to a musical theater school because I knew I could sing. And I, at that point, was realizing, oh, the majority of shows that get produced, both regionally and in New York, are musicals. And there are not as many men who can sing as there are men who just want to act in general. I should I should head towards the singing thing. So I ended up going to the Boston Conservatory for college and getting a BFA in musical theater. And it really revolutionized my voice. I had a voice teacher there, a brilliant lady named Carrie Deal, who turned my voice around and kind of gave me something that was not just nice and like, oh, you've got potential, but really shaped it into like, oh, this is like you can make a living singing, and that was the timeline. And from there, after college, around 2004, I graduated. I came straight to New York and hit the ground running. That was it.
When you came straight to New York, were you nervous coming to the big city, or were you determined and saying, you know what, I went through all this background and schooling, I'm ready to go, and I'm going to hit the ground floor running, and we're going to make this happen in the big city?
I have to say, I would love to say that I was nervous because that feels like the right thing to say. But the truth was, I wasn't. I had such a naive perspective on like, well, somebody has to book these jobs. They have to hire somebody. And why shouldn't it be me? Like, why shouldn't I just, and I just had I just always thought, if it's not this gig, it'll be the next one. If it's not this audition, it'll be the next one. And I went in with my head held pretty high, but not out of arrogance, but just out of naivete. I just didn't realize what the odds really were against me because no one had bothered to explain it. And I remember,
probably a good thing, wasn't it? You think?
Looking back, it was profoundly good. It was profoundly good luck that I was not, because I'm much more neurotic now than I was then. I mean, I think, because now I know
you only twitch your left eye every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah.